Okay, here are the solutions for assignment one. I'll talk about the grading, go over some of the answers and how to get there. And you should all have feedback on your actual assignments on Canvas. If you go to your grade page, check your grade, and on the comments, there should be an attachment with your PDF. So, um, yeah, this is the first time I've graded for correctness on assignments in LING 324. So if you look at the grade scale and look at your mark and don't freak out too much, again, everything will be adjusted towards the end of the course. So I am aware of how you should be doing in the course and how you're actually doing according to the grade scale. So I will make adjustments at the end of the course, so don't worry too much. So for the first one, it's 3% of your grade, so 0.75 for each part, which means in each direction was 0.375. If you gave me an extra inference that wasn't there, it was minus 0.175. If you gave me the correct inference but you didn't specify the right direction, it was minus 0.25. So here we go. One, there was an implication from A to B. So A implies B, or B is an implicature of A. So this was a scalar implicature. So when I say Tails is good at carrying Sonic over dangerous obstacles, I'm saying it's good, which means if I were to say something like, you wrote a good paper, there's an implicature that that your paper was good, but not great. So if I said, yeah, your paper is good, you might think, okay, well, what do I have to do to write a great paper? So to reinforce this, you can say Tails is good, but not great, and you can fill in the rest. So that's reinforcing it, but you can also cancel it. You can say Tails is good. In fact, he's great. So you could say the paper you wrote was good. In fact, it was a great paper, and that would be completely acceptable. So when you hear something positive, like, oh yeah, you're good at this, it can mean, oh, you're actually great. But normally when you hear you're good, you infer that you're not better than good, or you're great, you infer that you're not perfect. So that is an implicature in that case. And there's nothing in the opposite direction. So when you say you're not great, well, that doesn't imply that you're good. It can imply that you're awful. It doesn't imply anything specific. Two, uh, A presupposes and entails B, but you just had to have one of those. Either would be fine. So for the contradiction test, you could say after she recorded it, but she did not record it. This is kind of weird. This is contradictory in a sense, so that would be an entailment there from A to B. But if you do a presupposition test, so you could say something like, it is not true that after she recorded her first album in 2000, well, that's still going to presuppose that she recorded her first album in 2000. It's not true that after she recorded her first album in 2000, there's still that implicate or that presupposition that she recorded it in 2000. Or you could say, um, you know, after she recorded in 2000, did the Backstreet Boys become famous? You have that question there, and it's still going to presuppose that she recorded her first album in 2000. So there's nothing in the opposite direction. You're not going to get an entailment from B to A, a presupposition, or an implicature, because if you just say Britney Spears recorded her first album in 2000, this says nothing about the Backstreet Boys. So you get nothing from B to A. From three, there's a lot of people that said these sentences were synonymous, and I understand how you got that. So you only lost 0.175 if you said they were synonymous, which means that A entails B and B entails A. If two sentences are synonymous, that means that they share the same information, which means there's mutual entailment. So entailment in both directions. But uh, it's not necessarily the case, because in one sense, in B, you have an active sentence where the police is specified. But in A, you have the passive version, but there's nothing about the police here. However, you do have was arrested. So when you read the words was arrested, there's an implicature here. There's an expectation that the police are the ones doing the arresting. So you get an implicature from A to B because you expect that when you hear the words was arrested that the police are the ones doing the arresting. So you could do the things uh, Shia LaBeouf was arrested. Um, in fact, the police did it. Or you could say Shia LaBeouf was arrested, but um, the police didn't arrest him. Someone else did. In the opposite direction, though, the police arrested Shia LaBeouf for public drunkenness in July 2017. A contains all of the same information, except the police are not there. So if you say the police arrested him for public drunkenness uh, in July and you negate A, but he was not arrested for public drunk in July, this suddenly becomes a contradiction. So you have A implies B because you have that implication that the arresting was done by the police, but then in the other direction you have entailment because all of the information in A is already contained in B. So this was a special case where I didn't dock you as much because this was very easy to miss. For AB, this is the same idea as 2. A presupposes B and A entails B. Same idea. This is because of the word retained. So retained has this presupposition as if it was popular in the past. And if you do a contradiction test, it seems weird to say Fortnite dances retain their popularity, but they were never popular. That's contradictory. So I won't illustrate the test there, but they work the same way as 2. Okay, so those were 0.75 each, and the grading was just as above. 2, understanding presuppositions. So these were 0.75 each. It's got 0.375 if it's correct, and then another 0.375 if the test was applied correctly. If you didn't get the solution correct, then the test application wasn't given points. So this one was a little bit harsher in terms of grading. So first one, Sam returned to school to get another degree. So when he returns to school, this doesn't mean that he's physically present, because you can return to school and not be physically present. The word return assumes that you've been to school before. So the attitude test is great here. You can say, Sam did not return to school. Well, this still presupposes that he's been to school before. You're saying he's just hasn't returned to school. You can make it a question. Uh, did Sam return to school? And you're still presupposing that he's been to school before because you're saying, oh, did he return to school? He's still been there. So in this case, it presupposes B. 2 is the same idea. And I think 2 was a little bit more uh, confusing in a sense. So remember, when you do the attitude test, you're doing the attitude test on the original sentence. So when you do the negation, Papa John does not eat only pizza, you presuppose that Papa John eats pizza. You're not presupposing that Papa John doesn't eat anything else. Papa John does not eat only pizza, he might eat other things. But you're still presupposing he eats pizza. When you make it a question, does Papa John eat only pizza? You open up the possibility that he eats other things, but you still presuppose that Papa John eats pizza. So in both of these cases, you're presupposing B. On the other hand, 2 entails A. If Papa John eats only pizza, that means Papa John doesn't eat anything else. So 2 entails A. A was an entailment of 2. It was not a presupposition of 2. So that's one thing I saw. A lot of people said 2 presupposes A. Not quite. 2 entails A. 2 presupposes B. So a lot of cases where this went wrong was just not the attitude test, the accommodation test or the failure test. Again, I highly recommend for presuppositions, the attitude test, attitude test is your best friend. And I'll illustrate this again because I said this on the slides, but I didn't write this out. Is that presuppositions maintain themselves through negations and conditionals and questions. Entailments and applicatures do not. They go away. So the attitude test will destroy entailments and applicatures. The attitude test will keep presuppositions. So the attitude test is a great way to figure these things out. Okay, finally, 3, this one was done really, really well. how to make a pair of contradictory sentences. If you have any sentence A, to make a sentence B where A and B is a contradictory pair, just make B the negation of A. Or make B contain its antonym, which is really just the same thing as making B the negation of A. So if you gave me an example, that's 0.25. If you gave me the general idea, that's 0.25. So that's 0.5 in total. So an example would be if I said, um, here is a really simple one. John is happy. How do you negate that? How do you make that a contradiction? John is not happy. Or you could say John is sad, and then it would be contradictory to say John is happy and sad. I mean, I know this is really a kind of sentence because you can be happy and sad at the same time, but there are some interpretations where this is contradictory. What would be better is to say John is happy and not happy. This is 100% contradictory in every scenario under every interpretation. So this is really the best way to do it, is to just take the description and make it a not that same description. But this is a good enough way to do it under certain interpretations. So again, if you have any questions about this, you can always post it on the discussion board. But this is, the quick and dirty solution guide to uh, inferences and semantic relations. So on your first test, you'll have one question like this in the 50 or 60 minutes you get. So again, make sure to try the practice exercises, go through the lecture page, go through these questions again, and of course, talk to me or talk to the TA, and we're happy to go through this if you have any more concerns.